Kia ora koutou, and welcome to South Pacific Muscle. Today's guest, and must be by popular request, Darren Dingle. So we've had Darren on before, but it's really good to get Darren and have a good conversation with him about his bodybuilding and his background, because everyone I know that's met Darren speaks so highly of you, bro, and it's a real, it's a kudos to you, I say, and it's great to have you on board and looking forward to talking to you.
Yeah. Hey, guys. Cheers for having me. First of all, thanks to you guys for what you've been doing over the past 6 months with the South Pacific YouTube channel. Like, it's good for us athletes to have an outlet. And also, you know what it's like, deep in prep, we're up all night, nothing to watch. It's just good to have some content, some local content to watch to get through those preps and stuff.
And now you can listen. You can listen on the audio. I've just put them all up on the audio providers. So if you want something to listen to while you cardio in the morning, any Apple Podcasts or Google or whatever, so download those and listen to them while you cardio.
Hey, before we kick off, I think maybe we've had a discussion on that, because I have never listened to a podcast doing cardio, yet so many people say that they listen to our podcast and other podcasts doing cardio. What do you guys do?
I'm religious with it. I mean, obviously, Forward's been a great source of information lately. RX Muscle, get the news through Nick Strength and Power and all that stuff. Like, there's always Chris Bumstead. I love his YouTube channel.
Is that was it Fire in Paradise or something?
Yeah, Paradise on Fire. Yeah, cool. I basically love, Ian and James and Forward and Ben and all those guys. Just like I said to you guys last time, I think as amateurs we can relate to those guys a lot more. They're not the most genetically gifted in the pro league, and they just work their asses off.
Yeah, they got some good stuff, eh? Some real good stuff. What about you, Mike? What do you do?
Yeah, I'm the same. I've everything that Fuad puts out, I download, and if I don't get a chance to watch it on YouTube, then I'll listen to it. I'm not listening to as much now. I'm not cardioing in the off season, but it used to be, you fill in an hour every morning. But I also have like BBC World podcast and a couple of science ones as well. And when they pop up, I kind of go, oh yeah, nah. But if there's something offer, it's stuff out of left field that you'd never go searching for, but it just kind of expands your kind of your perspective a little bit. Just some interesting stuff from out of left field. So download them in Wi-Fi, listen to them, out on the streets, walking the hills or whatever. So yeah, I love them.
I might have to give it a go. I'm usually cranking something at 150 plus BPM, fucking having a ball out there doing my cardio. But I might give it a try. Hey, what I'm going to get you to do, Darren, is just give us a bit of background. And because we had a couple of questions, Mence Hence has said, how long have you been working out for and what was your first competition? And our mate Rocco from Gore, he has said, what got you interested in bodybuilding? How long were you training before you decided to compete? So if you can fit those in somewhere in your little intro and a bit of background about yourself.
So I grew up in Upper Hutt down in Wellington. I lived there till I was about 6. My mum on the methadone program, and I didn't have a relationship with my father, so childhood was a bit rough. My goal as a young guy was academics the whole time, going through year 1 to 6 at school. All I was interested in is grades, because my motivation was not having to grow up the way, or my family not having to grow up the way I did, kind of.
Yep.
I moved to the Wairarapa when I was about 10. That's kind of where I got into sport. There's no good going on with school where there's no academics. Trying to be academic, just got a bit picked on in that first year. So started doing, tackle, bull rush, rugby and all that during lunch times. And then from there, I've always been one of those guys that if I like something, I bloody love it, and I'll, go with it until I either get sick of it or I can't do it anymore. So yeah, I kind of tried to do that with rugby, but obviously starting a bit later, I was always going to be held back with that. And then I was about to go to college, and I was waiting for an All Blacks replay on Sky or whatever, and there was a game of cricket on, and New Zealand was playing Australia, like Chapel Hadley Series 2007, and Brendan McCullum was just gunning it from everywhere. So I kind of fell in love with that from there. So from there, the school I was at had no cricket teams, so I went there and tried to sign up, and they're like, well, if you can find 10 other people to play, we'll put a team in the competition. So I rounded up a few people. None of us had ever played cricket before. We had a couple of girls playing for us that first year as well. And then throughout my years at school, I ended up finishing there, and we had like 3 or 4 teams of players. We were playing in the men's open grade. Yeah, and I was obsessed with it. I was the guy carrying a cricket bat around with me, interval lunch, everything, you know. Any 10 minutes I get it, I'd go straight down to the nets, even if I could hit 5 balls during that time, it was good. From there, I made a Wellington team that we went over to India and played like a couple of weeks over there.
Wow.
And that opportunity gave me the opportunity to go back the next winter and play a club season over there. So I was working for Whited Upper Cricket at the time as a development officer's assistant, you know, going around the schools, teaching cricket skills and all that, and then training and playing cricket. And then during the winter, I'd go play cricket. So I guess cricket's kind of a bit like bodybuilding and the preparation that you have to put in mentally, because, you know, you can put on all the work during the week and you nick our first ball on the Saturday, kind of plays with you a bit mentally, right? And the amount of effort I was putting into cricket, I was starting to realize, hey, I'm probably never going to make that next level. But in doing that, I was around a whole bunch of high performance athletes training and stuff with the academies and that. And I started to find that my body was growing quite quickly just from training. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing either. I'd go to the gym, run 10K, do like a front of body, back of body split. But no, once I started doing that, I got diagnosed with type 1. And while I was about, when was that, 2015? So when I was lying in hospital, somebody's like, oh, bro, watch this, it'll be good. And it was a Pumping Iron DVD, Generation Iron, you know, all those good movies. They're like, he was really into bodybuilding at the time. So I watched it like, oh, well, whatever, got nothing else to do. And pretty much fell in love with it from there. So, you know, they sent me out of hospital with some insulin and said, you're going to have to inject yourself for the rest of your life. At that time, I had the biggest needle phobia. So I was basically thinking, just kill me now. But knowing that I had to eat a certain amount of carbohydrates with every time I injected basically made that connection between learning about nutrition. It wasn't just a hobby anymore. It was life or death. So everything, all the information sunk in, and you know what it's like. I just got obsessed with it from there, really.
Hey, that story reminds me of a guy I used to train with. I used to train in the Hawke's Bay rugby gym, and they had all the high performance athletes, under 20s, all that sort of thing. And one of the guys was a type 1 diabetic. And I said to him, how the fuck have you managed to become, like, he was fringing on, you know, like national selection. I said, how did you manage to become such a high performance athlete with type 1 diabetes? And he said to me, when I got diagnosed, I basically thought about it and thought, I either manage my health really well, or when I'm in my 50s, they cut my fucking feet off. And I went, okay, got it. And I was amazed that, you know, like his attitude. He said, overnight, I made a commitment, and he saw it through. And interestingly enough, that guy broke his neck in a mall. I think he was in it, collapsed, and he broke his neck. And I was thinking, holy shit, there goes his career. And I saw him like days afterwards coming out of hospital. And I said, fuck, you all right, bro? He goes, yeah, I'm going to become a track cyclist now. And I went, and, you know, I guess his ability to deal with things that for most people would just absolutely flatten them and you know, knock the wind out of their sails absolutely amazed me. So I guess, you know, when you're in that type 1 diabetic diagnosis stage, you have to make a choice one way or the other, you know, and we do see, unfortunately, so many type 1 diabetics that have managed their health badly over the years, and it's had a real impact. So, you know, I think, you know, you're leading by example in terms of what, you know, type 1 should be doing.
Yeah, thanks. Like you say, it's kind of, I had the mental thing as it happens, like, oh, you know, fuck, the rest of my life is over now. I didn't know anything about the disease. I didn't know how to manage it. I didn't know really what I was going to be able to do. But once I figured out that there was a direct correlation between carb intake and insulin, it became, I always wanted to track calories. I knew, you know, I walked around kind of like always skinny fat most of my life before I started bodybuilding. I always wanted to be ripped. I always wanted to have abs. You know, more for the girls and stuff when I was younger, probably. But when I made that commitment, I say this to a lot of people today. I think type 1 diabetes is the biggest blessing I've ever had, because it just made me, you know, I was at uni, I was, you know, drinking a couple times a week. I was doing all the stuff that really holds you back. And it's usually that fear of missing out with your friend group at that time that stops you. But getting diagnosed with that and gaining an understanding really quickly, everyone just supported what I was doing, and the bodybuilding just became a byproduct of that.
I used to have the same issue, but for other reasons, I couldn't drink when I was at university. And I used to always tell people, they'd say, "Come on, get on the piss with it," and I'd say, "Oh, I can't. I'm on antibiotics." And that was my opt out. I used it every time. I must have been on antibiotics for fucking 3 years, and that was my excuse to get away from that drinking culture. Yeah, right. So we'll come back to that because I really want to dig into your diabetes, insulin use, that type of thing, but. Going on to bodybuilding, you watched Generation Iron in the hospital and fell in love with it. Where to from there?
So I was studying at Massey here in Palmerston North at the time, and I wasn't a lecturer, but he was like a lab technician for one of our practical classes. He was starting up like an online coaching business. He worked with mainly powerlifters, but I saw on his website he had a local guy that he'd got completely shredded. And like I said, I think my goal going into bodybuilding was never, I want to get bigger, I want to get stronger. It was always, I want to get absolutely peeled. So when I saw that dude, I was like, sweet, I'll sign up the next day. It was kind of like an if it fits your macros approach. He made me download MyFitnessPal and stuff. But again, I'd already started to do that with the tracking the carbs for my diabetes. So I think that was the end of 2015.
What was the guy's name, Darren? Just out of curiosity.
Jeremy Fraser. So he works at Catalyst Strength and Physique Conditioning. He still coaches a few people around. Like I don't know if you guys saw at Nationals Lincoln Marshall in the Classic Physique. He was kind of a he done a few shows. But yeah, he's got great potential. But and my partner at the time actually worked with him and did a few NABA shape shows and stuff as well. So it was just kind of having someone local, because I didn't understand the whole process, and having NABA New Zealand here meant that I could go in, and I met Jim Pitt and Marianne. Basically said, "Hey, do I have what it takes to be a bodybuilder?" They said, "Yeah, there's a show in Manawatu in 10 weeks or something like that," right? So I was like, sweet. Started going to posing practices every Sunday, following the diet, doing the training. All my friends, like you said, it became very hard. I was living on Ada Street in Palmerston North. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but it's the party street here in town. And I was living with 5 guys my age who were all basically borderline alcoholics. So, the couch is out on the street burning and everything. I think that with the diabetes just made it me 10 times more focused, just to be like, I felt good saying no, because I was so used to saying yes all the time. So I've been like, nah, man, I got my own thing to sort out. It started to get addictive, I started that prep for the Manawatu show. I ended up just going to watch that show because I felt like I needed a few more weeks. So I made my debut at the Taranaki NABA show.
How long after you started lifting as a bodybuilder and after the Generation Iron DVD was it when you competed in Taranaki?
I'd say I started lifting in 2011, but I don't think I started bodybuilding training until 2015. It was like literally the year I got diagnosed. I'd been training for about 8 months trying to put on weight. And then, I weighed myself randomly after a month and I'd lost 30 kilos in about the space of 30 days. So I was like, this bulk ain't working. It was the diabetes, obviously. So that, held me back a little bit. But once I got insulin on board, so I was actually taking in the nutrients, I started to grow pretty easily. My first show in NABA Taranaki, I stuck to the diet 200%, did not cheat once, and I came in, probably still like 15% body fat. Like, it's funny back looking at the photos now, but that, just the taste of it all just got me hooked. Like, there was only probably like 25 people in the total show. And so it was good first experience. All the boys came up, we stayed at a hotel, made a big night of it afterwards. Nice. So they had something to make worth it. From there I think I went down to Dunedin. So we just decided, when's the next show? I'm doing it whenever it is. So we caught the ferry down, drove all the way to Dunedin, did the show, drove all the way back and straight back on the ferry.
Mike's laughing because he probably judged that show.
Yeah, you probably did. Yeah, it was good. I think that's where I met Nick Heatley, actually. So we've competed against each other a few times. And who else was there?
Sean King?
No, I don't think Sean was there. I do think about that. There was a guy, Joe, somebody who won the overall.
Kelso.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, he won the overall. and I got second to Nick in my class there, but like that's the first time I'd been in any kind of decent conditioning, so I was quite happy with that. And then from there, I think the week after was Never Wellington. Again, this is all like I've dropped that other coach by this point because it was just a fitsy macros. He was just sending me numbers each week, and it wasn't really preparing me for a bodybuilding show. You know, I didn't know anything about water manipulation, sodium training. I was just drinking, you know, I drank like 30 Coke Zeros the day before the show kind of thing, not knowing what was going on. So yeah, I did that Wellington show. I think I got third in my class then. And at that show, I saw Gaurav Taneja. Have you guys heard of Glute Man?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's one of Alma Porter's clients at the time. And I just remember being at the tanning booth with him, and he was in front of me. And he bent over, and I just saw it look like shards of glass going through his butt cheeks. And I said, I want to look like that. So I had a chat to him, and he told me he was working with Alma.
Yep.
So I rang Alma after the Wellington show, and I was like, hey, can I come up to Auckland and meet you and have a chat if you're taking on clients, whatever? So I went up to Auckland, and Alma's like, sweet, we're going to do the this NABA stuff. If you've got ambition in this sport, we're going to chuck you in the IFBB. There's a pro-am in March, so that gave me like 3 months to prep. So this is where Alma introduced me low carb dieting, because obviously being a diabetic, eating less carbs means less insulin, which means less fat storage in theory. So that whole prep I did, 2 hours of cardio a day, no carbs, did the whole old school suffer as hard as you can, which I got to the pro-am in 2017. I won my class 80 to 90 novice bodybuilding. I think there was about 12 people there. Of course, when they were reading out and third place and second place, I'd never beaten anybody in those NABA shows. I'd got last in my class out of 2 or 3 of those other ones. So when I didn't hear my name in the top at 5th, I was like, oh, I must have got 12th or something again. And when they read my name out and won, it was kind of a bit of like, whoa, disbelief. I walked off backstage, and I'm sure you've both been through this. I sat there and cried to myself for 10 minutes. Yeah, I knew deep down no one else could ever take this away from me, that I stuck to absolutely everything in that plan. I did every bit of cardio, every training, did not miss a single meal, didn't cheat. And trust me, man, I'm a foodie. So I'll take food over sex any day. So you can take food away from me.
Oh, gold. Bro, that's a very big progression to go from, minor placings or not placing in some of the NABA regionals to the Pro-Am, which is arguably, the toughest show outside the nationals, sometimes harder. And to win a class there is really something,
Yeah, I'm saying I didn't even know how big the show was when I entered it, or I probably would have picked something else, to be honest. But this is how novice I was, even at that show. They're doing the overalls and stuff. I think that Denver might have won that Pro-Am. I don't think it was just before he got his pro card.
Okay.
And I didn't even know about going up for the overalls. I was sitting in the crowd watching it because, there was Dallas McCarver and Brandon Curry and stuff doing the open men's show. So I was just wanting to get back and watch that.
While we're there, let's shout out to Alma. When I was up in Auckland just recently and saw him at City Fitness. Wanted to go and have a chat, but he was with some clients. He obviously saw me and my wife. He's now following her on Instagram, not following me, but I know he's a big fan of this. Knows a big fan of the show, and he watches them all. So shout out to Alma because he's a quality coach.
Yeah. Good.
Not just a quality coach, man, but if I've got a second, he is somebody I want to shout out because he's a quality person. Going into every big show we ever did together, he'd fly me up to Auckland. I'd stay at his house for 2 weeks, Rocky boot camp style, He'll be looking at me every hour. He's got so many weird little techniques that he does. And you'll ask him, why do you do that, Alma? And you'll be like, I'll tell you one day kind of thing. And you never know what the real purpose is. But the experience, the knowledge, I could sit there and talk to him about anything all day, just the depth of he's very articulate. He can really speak what he's thinking. He's an awesome man, and I'd say he's probably my biggest inspirational idol through the sport. Like I said earlier, growing up without a mum and a dad, I've always kind of looked for that role model figure, and anything I get interested in, Alma's definitely been he's the closest thing I'd say to a father figure I have. That's how close we got.
Wow.
Nice.
Fuck, big call. Yeah, no, he's a good guy. I used to train at the same gym as him for probably 3 years, so had some pretty good conversations over the years, and shot the shit about all sorts of things, ideas, and very knowledgeable guy. And I think all his athletes say that he puts in, he goes over and above and beyond what you would expect from a coach, and gives us everything. So that's awesome. Hey, I think maybe it's worth covering now what type 1 diabetes is versus type 2, what it actually means, because I think a lot of people will have heard the term, type 1 diabetic, but know that it means that someone has to use insulin, but the background behind that might be a bit vague for some of our viewers, and there'll be others that know a lot about it. But do you want to give us a quick type 1, type 2, what it actually means in terms of the pancreas, insulin production, that type of thing?
Yep. So obviously, like you say, there's type 1, type 2. Type 2 is usually your body has created insulin resistance to the point where your pancreas isn't either releasing enough insulin to break down the carbohydrates and to store them, or it's resisting the carbohydrates. Whereas type 1, my pancreas doesn't produce any insulin at all. So I have to manually check my blood sugar and take insulin according to whatever it reads. So, like every time a non-diabetic eats carbohydrates, your body releases the insulin, and which shuttles the carbohydrates into the cells, or is excess goes to fat storage. For me, if I eat carbohydrates and I don't inject the insulin, the carbohydrates will just circulate in my bloodstream. That can lead to a lot of bad health things, such as, like big thing with type 1 is feet and eye problems, kidney problems is obviously probably the biggest culprit for death in diabetics, and like the same with lows. If my blood sugar is too low, I need to eat sugar to bring the level back to a normal level. If I don't do that, you start profusely sweating, you get dizzy, you get tired, and you can even fall into a coma or die. So it is basically, it's a life or death illness. You've got to make 20 to 30 extra decisions a day.
Just on the obviously the hyperglycemic is when your blood sugars are too high, and I know that if they're too high for an extended period of time, that can do some serious damage, as you said, eyes, kidneys, those sort of things. And I believe they measure that using HbA1c blood test.
HbA1c,
HbA1c, and the hypos are where you've used or your insulin produced has dropped your carbohydrates in your blood, so your blood glucose to such a level that your brain starts sort of shutting down almost. Is that essentially it? So
yeah.
Sorry.
So like when you're having a low, I try to describe this to a lot of people. It's kind of like that feeling where you've drunk so much and you're about to spew and you're dizzy and you're sweating and you're seeing things and you can't think, you can't rationalize anything, you're snappy. So you've really, like, the people around you really need to have an understanding of what's going on, because, like I can even pick it up in my mood sometimes. If I snap quickly to a question that's asked of me, like, because I'm not that kind of person, I usually will check my blood sugar, like, why am I reacting like this? Because obviously if you're not getting the sugar moved out of your bloodstream where it's meant to go, it's just circulating your body. You're not getting any nutrients to your brain or to anything that you need to function.
Now, you'd be fairly consistent with your diet now. So do you still feel that you need to check your blood sugar level often? Do you check it daily or multiple times a day now? Or are you just fairly consistent with your diet so you know where it's at?
I'm good at knowing the symptoms, but I still like to check it just to know. Sometimes, I'll be like, oh, I think I'm high. And then you check it and you're high and it's like easy. But then sometimes you, like, just say you're dehydrated, for instance, you can kind of get the same kind of metallic-y mouth feeling and you think that you're high. And if you don't check it and you just treat that, you could send low. So yeah, I still check my blood sugar an hour before every meal, an hour after every meal, when I wake up, before I go to bed, before I exercise, during exercise, after exercise.
Sorry, Karen.
No, you don't have to be as over the top about it as me, but the more times you check it, especially around food and training, the easier you can find those patterns between the carb intake and the amount of insulin you're taking, so you can dose the correct amount for yourself.
So for the, I guess, non-diabetics, I mean, I got a blood glucose monitor relatively recently and started checking my fasted blood glucose levels, and my understanding is they're supposed to be below 5.5 upon waking. Between 5.5 and 6 when you wake up in the morning is sort of pre-diabetic, and above 6 is a bit of a problem. So I was checking mine just to make sure that my blood sugar levels were in the right range, so that my pancreas is releasing the right amount of insulin and absorbing the carbohydrates that I'm eating. So for us who bodybuilders are pushing the food and pushing the food and pushing the food, your pancreas, as I understand it, can just get a little bit tired and just not be releasing enough insulin. And so that might be a time to have a bit of a mini cut, or to cut back on the carbs, or go keto for a little while, or something, just to kind of manage that. So yeah, that's the way I've kind of looked at blood glucose levels for myself. And so even for non-diabetics, it's kind of worth getting an understanding of where your blood sugar levels are at, just to make sure you're absorbing the carbohydrates efficiently.
Yeah, this is a big pet hate of mine, to be honest. I know a lot of people like that are using insulin that aren't checking their blood sugar. Now, if you're going to be taking something as dangerous as insulin, A, you need to know what it does, why you're taking it, and B, you need to be checking your blood sugar. Like, those things cost $20 at the chemist. If you're willing to inject yourself with insulin, then pricking your finger to check the blood sugar isn't a big deal. And you think about your loved ones, think about the people you're around and stuff. You could take some of that and be doing cardio, and you just think that you're suffering, you're thinking you're a bit tired, you're on the floor out cold, and it's literally can happen that quick. So good on you for checking your blood sugar. And like you say, if you are bulking high in the off season, eating high amount of carbohydrates, taking certain things that raise your blood sugar, then you need to be, with your doctor's advice. I do think that there's a place for insulin and non-diabetics, both for performance and for health. Like, taking a long-lasting insulin, if you are insulin resistant, so if you are waking up with high resting blood sugars, then taking a lot, start with one unit, start with 2 units, or whatever your doctor recommends. But taking a little bit of Lantus will help your pancreas work through that amount of carbohydrates, because during the off season, I know myself, I get up to 700, 800, 900 grams of carbs a day. And if I was non-diabetic, I can just imagine how high my blood sugar would be staying all the time. So little things like you say, having mini cuts or doing keto for a while, just to increase your insulin sensitivity. Or another good thing that a lot of people don't talk about is psyllium husk. So taking a fiber supplement before you go to bed and when you wake up in the morning helps keep those blood sugars down, because it's slowing the utilization and digestion of all the carbs you're taking, especially if you're eating a lot of high GI carbs. You have the big spikes, which are followed by the huge drops. And when you have that huge drop, what's happening is you're craving again. So you crave for something quick to bring it back up, and you're just going like this all day. Now, you can imagine your blood sugar helps affects things like your mood, anxiety, depression, hunger, and all that. And if you're going like this all day, that's pretty much what's happening with all those functions, right? So balancing your meals by eating low GI carbs, having good source of protein with every meal, having essential fatty acids with each meal, vegetables, everything, balancing your meals will help reduce the risk of insulin resistance.
So just
to touch on a point you made there, the normally a hormone system, if you're taking something exogenously, your body tends to shut down its own production. It goes, well, we don't need this, so let's stop producing. Whereas from what I've read or heard about insulin, it's taking a little bit of insulin gives your pancreas a rest is actually helpful. Doesn't cause your pancreas to go, well, we don't need to take to produce any because we're getting some exogenously. So it's actually a good thing if your body's under strain, if you're having problems producing enough insulin, to take a little bit of external. It's not going to shut down your body's own production. It's going to give your beta cells and your pancreas a little bit of a rest and allow them to rejuvenate themselves.
What you're saying is true. That's another big thing I hear. Hey, if I take insulin, my body's going to stop producing insulin. No, pretty much the testosterone and thyroid are the only things that will not start auto-regulating itself, right? You can take insulin, your pancreas will continue to produce the same amount of insulin that it would. the only reason that we say maybe take a long lasting while you're on those high carb diets, if your resting blood sugar is high, is because it'll just give it, what Lantus does is it splurts out, its half-life isn't like the short acting, it doesn't peak after an hour. It's kind of giving you a little bit of help throughout the day for 12 hours straight. So if your blood sugar was running a little bit high in the morning, and then you're going to top carbs on top of that, your pancreas is only going to be producing enough really to break down the food you're taking, right? So it's still going to have that little bit of extra high. Now, that accumulative over weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks is what will show up on your HbA1c and tell you that you're now diabetic or whatever. So yeah, I'm doing a lot more research into it at the moment, but I am starting to go down the lines of, I think that Lantus for people running high blood sugars or eating high amount of carbohydrates is definitely a help. And it isn't a performance thing. Like obviously if you're running high blood sugars all the time, you're in a catabolic state, right? Because you're not getting the nutrients delivered to where they need to be. So it does help you slightly with performance, in fact, that you're in a more anabolic state, but we're not taking it for that reason. So like, I don't think there's any performance benefits to Lantus really. It's quite dangerous to use as a performance enhancer.
So if you're not running high blood sugars, there's no benefit to taking Lantus or anything like that. So just to put it out there to people, you don't need to run out and get yourself some insulin just because you're a bodybuilder.
Yeah, exactly. You need the evidence from the blood work. Get the HbA1c done. Check your blood sugar in the morning. If you're running high, go talk to your doctor about it, and then they'll probably recommend, something along the right lines.
So I'm going to pull it back a bit because, it's getting a little bit high level there, but from a meathead perspective, so you've got, when you're on a high carb diet, you essentially are pushing yourself sometimes towards that pre-diabetic type 2 diabetic state, and hence the long acting Lantus could give your pancreas a bit of a rest versus the guys that are going, I want to make gains. I'm going to jam in some Ac Rapid after my workout and try and shuttle everything I can in. And we know that attitude was really prevalent in the 90s. It was obvious on stages around the world, but also even locally. I know of a lot of guys that have done that, and some of them were running some absolutely crazy amounts post-training. And I do know of probably 3 or 4 people that have gone into hypos and only through the good luck that they had a partner or someone that knew what to do, they're probably still here today. But I think that the differentiation between easing off on your pancreas versus trying to shuttle all these bloody extra nutrients in post-training is probably something people need to understand. And I guess the risk of using Nova Rapid or something Ac Rapid, something like that post-training has probably got a higher risk than a low amount of Lantus, would you say? Or
Yeah, definitely. But it's like you say, it's just don't get any drug off somebody and take it because they tell you how to take it, right? Like you just said, there needs to be a reason to why you're taking it, and you need to understand the ramifications of that. And then it's not like any other drug. It's very dangerous. None of the other stuff that you take will probably kill you instantly. This can. So people just need to be aware of that. And like you say, if you've got a fully functioning pancreas and you're, what it's like deep in prep when you add carbs back in, your body starts churning and you just, if you're like that, there's no need to be taking insulin because post-workout, you put those carbs in, you're probably going to run a low blood sugar an hour after that anyway because your metabolism's burning so fast. So adding insulin to that mix is just dangerous.
Yeah. Look, I used to have the saying, people would ask about insulin and I would say insulin's only dangerous if you're shit at maths. But in retrospect, looking at it now, my views changed a bit because, you can do the old, 1 unit, 10 grams of carbs sort of thing, but you talk about when you're dieting and blood sugars do very funny things, as you say, once you've fasted and you've done cardio, you whip in some carbs and they disappear like that. Then you're left with a gap with a big, load of insulin in there, which can put people into that hypo. And like you say, when you're dieting, you're pretty dopey and tired anyway. You might put it down to just being a bit tired or lethargic. And next minute you're on the floor dribbling,
Go have a nap and you don't wake up.
Yeah. That's a big one too, is if you're not checking your blood sugar, especially, and this is the main thing the reason I'm bringing this up is because a lot of people I talk to who talk to me about insulin, I'll preface that conversation with, I'm not even going to talk to you about this unless you promise me you're going to check your blood sugar, right? Because that's how prevalent it is. People do not want to prick their finger. This little prick, come on, guys. If you're willing to put your life at risk, you need to be willing to check your blood sugar. Like, you don't do anything without information these days. There's too much. Yeah.
If I eat 100 grams of carbs, in theory, healthy pancreas, normal blood sugar levels under normal circumstances, my body's going to release the appropriate amount of insulin to absorb all of those carbs. And
Exactly.
so theoretically, I don't need any insulin unless I've got an issue with consistently high blood sugar levels. So I think that's probably the take-home message. Your body will produce the insulin you need, unless there's something going wrong. You find that out by testing.
And I think it's worth people having a good understanding of the mechanisms of insulin, glucagon, etc., but learning how to manipulate their natural insulin levels to suit their needs, i.e. post-training, using a fast-acting carbohydrate source that goes into the blood quickly, creates an insulin response naturally, and then shuttling the other nutrients they want into their body.
Exactly. And that's exactly how I recommend it. You can create the same response by having a high GI carb, either intra or post workout, right? There's no need to be, for most people, to be doing that sort of thing. Exactly right. And another thing is that I've seen coaches working with other diabetics and even working with me who are still trying to apply that same, let's have some quick carbs post workout, quick carbs intra workout. We're not going to get the same response, right? We have to inject to start that response. So if you're coaching that and you're making a diabetic do that, do some more research.
I never thought of that, because the only reason we have the high GI carbs is to stimulate the insulin response. And if you haven't got an insulin response, fucking the GI of your carbs aren't really going to make a lot of difference, are they?
No, exactly.
So I mean, you do coaching, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, I'm sure we'll go back to that in a bit, but look, if you're out there and you're a diabetic or you think about using insulin, this is probably your man to speak to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm really, like you just said, I'm really passionate about helping other diabetics, because not just athletes, but non-athletes or whatever, because I just see a lot of people, they get sent away like I did from the hospital with some needles, and they're not going to have the reason like I did to understand everything, right? So they pretty much spend most of their life mistreating their diabetes, not checking their blood sugar, running high blood sugars the whole time, which is why a lot of diabetics end up in dialysis in their 50s, 60s, because I don't see any reason why a diabetic can't live an almost normal life. It just means that we have to do a few extra things a day. And if that's annoying, I mean, how much time do we spend checking the Instagram notifications every hour, right? Instead of doing that, you could just prick your finger once. There's no excuses.
Yeah, look, on the end of that one, I'm going to add, look, I've had a friend die after having kidney transplant, after being on dialysis for years, as a result of being a type 1 diabetic and not looking after his health. So, look, if you are diabetic, you're type 1, our take-home message is look after yourself, educate yourself, and if you're interested in bodybuilding or interested in living a healthy life with a bit of background knowledge, get on to Mr. Dingle here and learn from him, because he's obviously spent a fair bit of time getting into the background of the stuff, a hell of a lot more than Mike and myself have to, because our lives don't depend on it. But I guess that's probably something that people could do and get in contact with you and learn a bit more. So we will leave the insulin topic, although, look, I could go there for hours on that, because I've got some pretty horrific stories from the 90s, but I won't. But you've hit the Pro-Am, you've done the Pro-Am, and was your next show Tournament of Champions, or have I missed a couple of them?
No, so that Pro-Am was 2017, so that was still a few years back. After that, I think I came back and did the Dunedin Never show again, because my girlfriend was doing shape or whatever, and we did the mixed pairs together, so it was an opportunity to like compete together or whatever. I think I got second to Nick again, and she won the overall shape, so that was good. from there, the week after, or a couple of weeks after, I did IFBB Wellington. So I won the 90 to 100 bodybuilding and the novice 90 to 100 bodybuilding. My stage weight at the pro-am was about 81 kilos, and I was pretty peeled. In that time frame, I don't know what happens. Like that rebound was the most muscle I ever put on after that first pro-am. I think I was on stage at 94 or something with pretty similar conditioning in Wellington. I mean, that's...
How tall are you, Nick? Sorry, how tall are you?
180 centimeters.
I called you.
5'11".
I called you Nick. I think it's you guys with the beard.
It's the beard and the hair. Yeah, Mike called me Nick last time.
Imagine if we had both of you on here at the same time. We'd be fucking all over the place. Okay, sorry. How tall were you?
5'11".
Oh, shit, that's a good amount of weight at 5'11", man.
Yeah, I mean, back then, of course, like I said, I was training hard, eating right, and everything was just happening. No injuries. I was just growing pretty evenly everywhere. So I never really had to focus on, a certain body part or weakness or whatever. So a couple of weeks after that was my first nationals in the IFBB. I won both my classes in the 80 to 90. So from that 93, whatever I was in Wellington, I got down to 89.9 for nationals. To this day, I think that was probably my best look. It was a good mix between being conditioned and full, and I was a lot more comfortable on stage at that point. I can't really remember. I know that Denver won over Dan Hibbs in the overall at that show. That was, 120 kilos versus Dan at 70, something absolutely peeled. That was cool to see. And then after that show, Mo kind of said to Alma, is Darren interested in coming over to the Arnolds in March 2018? And I kind of was sitting on the fence because I'd been dieting for a year straight. And then Alma was like, we're doing it. So his idea was that, thinking probably that we're going to be coming up against monsters in Australia. So we started bulking me pretty aggressively there. Like, I think I went from my comp diet straight into like a 6,500 kind of thing. As you can imagine, I put on, that's probably that off season. I got the fattest I'd ever got as well. So the cut was horrendous. I had 14 weeks and I was on pretty much no food, doing everything you can do with 2 trainings, and my body just wasn't responding really. But I got to the Arnolds. Elmer worked his magic during the peak week, and I don't know what I placed. I got first call out of about 20 people, so probably 4th or 5th. That was pretty stoked with that.
Oh yeah.
Any thoughts about why your body wasn't respond? Any thoughts about why your body didn't respond in that phase?
I think we just went far too aggressive straight after a diet. We didn't ease the calories back in. It was just because we knew we had no time to really put that size on. We only had 2 months before I would have to diet again. And then the diet, as you guys know, you can't, as I've learned from this experience, you can't just go drop your calories right down, do all the cardio, because your body just gets used to that after a couple of weeks. And then where do you go from there? 3 hours cardio, 500 calories a day, So I just had to stick it out and do everything I could. It was my first time competing while traveling. I got to Australia and I was a water balloon. So these are all little things that we learned, and Alma would have learned as well with me. Like, it wasn't fun. We had to cut water like more than 4 hours out because I was just holding so much. So I was like, I'm over in Melbourne and all my friends are out having fun, enjoying the time, and I'm sitting there staring at water coolers, getting happy about it, But yeah, I was happy with that result. And then we came back to Auckland and did the pro-am the week after that. And I was a lot more conditioned, but the lineups were crazy. There was like, there's 4 people in both my classes, and 2 of them were from Oxygen Gym in Kuwait, and Luke Parker was the other one from New Zealand. He's an awesome bodybuilder, like great, he had a lot more muscle than me. So I got 2nd and 4th.
Yep.
From there,
that pro-am it can be a real awakening experience, I suppose, because I had the same. I did the pro-am 215, and the guy from Kuwait came over and just wiped the floor with everyone. And shit, he must have had fuck, 32, 33-inch quads on stage. I was just like, what is this guy?
Bro,
You know?
I was standing next to these guys at the backstage and I was looking at their legs and, you know, they're just veins on top of veins almost. Like that was just crazy. The fullness, the roundness, and probably they're all like 45 and I was probably 25 at the time as well. You know, you got all your friends telling you, you're the man, bro, you're looking good, you're going to get it, and then you show up there against guys like that. And I knew after prejudging, but I was also really happy because that's the heaviest I'd been on stage with that kind of conditioning again. So, you know, it was still a win for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
From there, I did the Tournament of Champions, the first one that they ever did in 2018. I won both my classes there. Again, I think that was another, you know, I'd prepped from that Arnold's to that Pro-Am and then carried on to May. And I was already saying my body was tired back in March. So by the time I got to there, that's probably my worst showing, I'd say, in the IFBB. Then a month after that, I fell asleep on the couch, just, you know, randomly on a 2-seater. And I woke up the next day and I had a sore neck. And I think I had shoulders that day and I was doing behind the head press and I just felt something go a bit, and it was a bit sore, but nothing of it. Anyway, I wake up the next day and my whole left side of my body is basically numb. I went to the gym and tried to like just see what I could do. I couldn't bench the bar. I had no range of motion. I had tingling right down to my pinky. So I went and got that diagnosed and I'd impinged my C7, which I've never really recovered from. It kind of atrophied my left pec, my left tricep, my left lat. It's hard to explain, but even now when I'm pushing, it feels like I've got like 40% of the nerve control. You know, when you're pushing in those last sets, it just goes numb and then there's just nothing in it. It's not like it's weak. It's just there's no oomph to anything I'm doing. That's
not recruiting the same amount of fibers.
Yeah. That's how it feels. And like the shape. So that I was always quite symmetrical. Like all my body parts were quite even, nothing bigger than the others or whatever. So to me, when I started to see that left side of my body, you know, shrinking, it was a big mental thing. And to be honest, like that Arnold's took everything out of me, you know, like like I said, I've grown up basically everything I've ever done, I've done on my own accord with having no parents. So like financially going to the Arnold's and paying for me and for Alma and my girlfriend and everyone to go, I get bodybuilding's almost detrimental to me sometimes because I get into that whatever it takes mindset, you know, like I'll do absolutely anything.
Yeah.
And we've all been there, eh?
Yeah, exactly, man. And it was just like at that time as well, the girl that I was with, we broke up and not having that I was ready for, but it was more losing her family, like not having a family at the same time. Like it really sent me into a downward spiral. Not being able to train. A whole bunch of my friends went on their OE to Canada. You know, I'm in this town with losing my vice, which is bodybuilding, and losing all that stuff. I really struggled. So I carried on my study. It got to about March 2019, and I was like, hey, I don't care about the C7 nerve injury or whatever anymore. Like, I'm just going to try my best and see what I can do and get on stage, whatever. Yep. So I started prep. Everything was going well. And I was about 4 weeks out from IFBB Wellington. And it was my birthday and we had a little thing at the house. Obviously, I wasn't drinking or anything because of the show. Yep. But the girls rang me and said, hey, can you come pick me up? So I drove to town, walked into the club, got the girls. They all ran off towards the car because they're all drunk, and I was kind of walking behind them, and I felt a hand on my shoulder, and I turned around, and somebody just blindside knocked me out one punch. Then I kind of woke up, and it was like all I remembered is that I was taking the girls home, so I just kept walking, not realizing that my jaw was down here and it was bucketing out with blood. And I saw my reflection in a shop window, and I saw it all happen, and I basically fainted instantly.
Ooh,
yeah. And then so the police and that all came around. I was like, nah, like I'll go to the hospital in the morning. Like I just want to go to sleep now. Probably had adrenaline and all that going. Yeah. Woke up the next day in absolute agony, like blood everywhere. And so my partner's like, we go to the hospital. Yeah. We get to the hospital. They're like, yeah, your jaw's broken. They gave Jess petrol vouchers to drive me down to Wellington. So I had 2 surgeries then. So they basically like, it was broken right down here and completely dislocated off this side of my head here.
Ooh, Jesus.
So I ended up having 3 different surgeries on that jaw. But after the first one, I said, hey, can you just wire this shut or something? Like, I've got a show in 3 weeks and I really want to carry on doing it. So they did. They left a little gap for me so I could blend up my fish and my whey and my egg whites or whatever I was doing and sip it through a straw. To be honest, bro, like, that's the easiest prep I've ever had to do. It didn't matter what I was craving. There was nothing going in that hole. So it made it quite good.
You could start a really bad trend here. Like, we could offer a service where we wire your fucking jaw shut while you're dieting.
Yeah.
Oh shit. So you did a show with a broken fucking jaw.
Yeah. So I obviously training was quite hard because I'm a real like facial grip my teeth kind of thing, and I couldn't do that, so my output was a lot different. But you know, I got it done. Went to the show and I won my class. That was my first classic physique class.
Yep.
Then I got second to Andrew in the overall, Andrew Murray.
Yep.
Like I had no expectations going into that show except finishing because of what had happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, my conditioning was, you know, good as it usually is, and I was just the injury wasn't noticeable because I'd probably atrophied a bit on the right side now as well because of everything that had happened. From there, I kind of was like, all right, we're going to get this jaw fixed. We're going to have a year off and all that. That lasted probably a week before I decided I was going to do Waikatos. I started working with Sam Andrews at the time. He was living down here in Palmy. We became quite close. You know, cook all our food together, do the trainings, hang out, get through the tough times. And then, we went up to Waikatos. I did classic and bodybuilding. I got second in bodybuilding and I got 5th in classic. But the classic class, you know, it had Yusuf, Nico Grundy, the guy that won his classic pro card in 2019. I forget his name. I think he might be Sri Lankan origin. But anyway, it was a good class. And then I went to nationals and got 3rd in my class in classic. And from there, I messaged Connor in about February last year and I said, hey man, I see you're starting the business. Like, I know the thing with coaching is, like I say, I'm a coach myself. I know how to do nutrition. I know how to train. What I need is somebody who I know is working their ass off like me. So I'm not, you know what it's like when you're a bodybuilder and everyone in your life isn't a bodybuilder, it gets very lonely and no one understands what's going on. So I respect the heck out of anyone who I know is following the process 100%. And both Connor and his partner Hin, I knew did that. So I was like, cool, this could work out well. You're starting the business. I'm a little bit known in the industry. So if you prep me for free for this show, you know, we both get a bit of, you know, I get some coaching, you get a bit of notoriety or whatever. And I think we're about 4 weeks out from the Tournament of Champions when it was meant to be in May and it got cancelled because of COVID.
Yeah.
So from there, I was like, hey, Connor, I've liked what you've done. I want to keep working with you. So I became a proper client. Him and his partner, Henny, let me train at their house during lockdown until I'd sorted out my own stuff. So we built a little gym in our spare room here, got like a squat rack and a bench and about 260 odd kilos of plates and, you know, cable machine, just everything you kind of needed to get through.
Hey, just before we move on from that, because I've been thinking about that, like I was thinking, you know, if we have another lockdown, what does it cost, rough figure, to have a reasonable setup to train?
So at the time I was quite lucky because I was searching everywhere, you know, every site you could. And there was a place came up called Lee Warehouse on Trade Me. And he was like wholesaling. He must have been getting it from China or something, like really. But, you know, I got a bar plus my first 100 kilo of plates was like 350, which I thought was pretty decent.
That's real good.
Yeah. And then the plates were like down at $3 a kilo. It was something. So that was really good. I got adjustable dumbbells. I got floor mats for they ended up costing like $1 each. So I think we stocked up the whole room on about 1,500 maybe, like with everything. But we got like a cable machine and high-low pool, and I don't know if you guys remember.
That's so cheap, bro. Like I've been looking on Trade Me just recently, and like a squat cage, the cheapest I could find a good squat cage was about 1,200 ish, but most of them were up around that 2.5 grand. And I can imagine what fucking shipping from Auckland is for a fucking squat cage. So, you know, you're probably looking at between fucking $2 and $3 grand minimum, you know, for a decent squat cage. So, fuck, for $1,500, you did a good job.
Not only that, bro, it's because it was on Trade Me. We stuck it all on Afterpay. It was brilliant. You know, it was like $50 a week kind of over the lockdown, and at the end of the lockdown it was gone. But I don't go, if you guys remember during lockdown, just before he passed, Luke Sando was like building that little gym in his garage.
Yeah.
Like that stuff was psyching me up, hey. Like Luke, like that's probably one of the sadder things that happened during that period last year. I really looked up to him. He's an awesome guy. Like
he was a cool guy, eh?
How good, you know, like he's a bodybuilder, but he was so human. And I think he's the first pro to really show those characteristics. And now we're seeing it with everyone else.
Yeah, he definitely led something that we hadn't seen previously. And I think, you know, guys like James Hollingshead, you know, Fuad, people like that, even Ian, Ben Chow, obviously Ben, and some of the other guys that sort of pop in and out of some of those podcasts have kind of carried on that tradition. And I think it's really good because it kind of shows people just how human we really are. I mean, you know, you can be a newbie starting out weighing fucking 65 kilos trying to put some weight on, or be a 140 plus kilo mass monster, but you're still human, you know? And it's really nice seeing people that we look up to, that we aspire to be like, actually showing that they're just people like us, you know?
Yeah, nah, like his whole journey from where, you know, like, I don't know if you guys have watched any of his YouTube during that, like Arnold Classic prep and stuff, but it's just so real. Yeah, that was good. So yeah, from there we built that gym. Working with Connor was really good because like the juxtaposition between working with Alma and Connor was like, Alma has all the knowledge and the stuff and blah blah blah, but kind of Alma was like, I'll see you in you know, chicken in 3 weeks, 4 weeks kind of thing. Whereas I'm the kind of person that, you know, I love bodybuilding. I want to be talking it, living it, breathing it every day. And Connor was exactly the same. So, you know, would have the weekly check-ins, would be seeing each other, like training together, all that sort of stuff. And that's kind of what I wanted. I wanted that team environment around me. Especially because my current partner, before we met, she had no understanding of the fitness industry at all. I kind of went that way by purpose this time after being with someone in the industry before. And yeah, so when me and Connor started working together, things just started happening quite quickly. Like I said, I dieted on no carbs in the past. This time Connor's like, you know, we're going to keep carbs high the whole time. And my body just started changing really quick. I treated that whole off season like a prep. That's the first time I've ever treated, like I do the 80-20 rule usually in the off season. You know, you need to have a bit of flexibility for your friends and family and all that. Bit
of sanity.
Yeah, exactly. But this off season was like, we can't buy takeaways. We can't leave the house. Being high risk diabetic, and you know, I couldn't even get a job anywhere. So it was like, I'm just going to sit in here and treat this like my bloody job every day. I did not miss a meal, did not miss a liter of water, got everything perfect. We got my weight up to about, I think we got tops 106, but like my body fat never got out of control at all. So when we started cutting the diet, because I think I got up to like 8,000 calories or something at the end of that off season, and all we did is change. So just say all my meals stayed exactly the same, even during prep. All we did is like cut the orange juice out of breakfast, change the potatoes to low potatoes, take a piece of bread out. You know, it was like, because we'd kept things so consistent, those little changes made the huge difference. It was about 6 weeks out. I was probably looking at myself saying, this is the best condition I've ever been in. There's still 6 weeks to go. I think Connor did a really good job bringing me in for Wellington, considering like, that's another thing we haven't talked about, like the injuries I've had over the last couple of years since I had that C7. Like the rest of my body has had to take the slack of that not working properly. So I've had slip discs, and my lower back, which has been a big one. If anything, hip hinging, so it's taken out, you know, my deadlifts, rack pulls, squatting sometimes, bent over rows, all my favorite movements. Really, I just couldn't do anymore, because even if I can get into the position, it didn't feel even, you know, like it felt like my right side was doing half the work or whatever. So I had to train unilaterally for a long time.
Hey, can I just Can I just jump in here and
Yeah.
ask you, Darren? Because like I'm broken, you know, I feel like the hunchback of Notre Dame, you know, shoulder this and hip that and knee swollen and surgeries and so on. When you're working with a coach, so I'm kind of umming and ahhing and looking at, you know, finding the right coach and that sort of thing. My issue is if I sign up with someone, if I say, right, we're going to do this, I want to be in 110%.
Yeah.
I don't want to be constantly going, oh, well, look, I would have, but my knee got really sore and my shoulder was this. And, you know, I tried to, but I just don't want to make excuses for a coach. So how did you find working with Connor when, you know, there were limitations around what you could and couldn't do? I mean, I know psychologically you give it 110%, but when physically you can't give it 100%, how does that work in the coaching relationship?
Oh, you just hit the nail on the head of pretty much what my big battle's been all year. Just me, like I said earlier, me as a person, if I'm going to do something, I want to do it 200%, you know, and then some. So knowing that no matter how well I stuck to my diet perfectly, no matter how much I did everything, that my training output was 20, 30% tops during that whole prep, it did suck. And one of the reasons I went to Connor is because I watched him train. I know he trains balls to the walls. He trains hard. He progressive overload. He trains the way I want to train, you know, DC method, you know, getting stronger, like real basic stuff. And like even my first session with him, I felt like I was a bit of a liability. So what you're saying, it is hard. I think keeping open communication with your coach and letting them know, hey, I'm broken. I've got this. I'm not training hard. I'm doing my best. I promise you. I'm trying to work around these things. I mean, and if you've got a coach who's like, nah, whatever, then he's not the coach for you. I think any coach, I say this to all my clients as well. If you're going to pick a coach, you need to have 100% honest communication with them. This is a very, very personal thing that we're putting ourselves through. You're the only one that knows when you're lying there at night suffering, like that you're the one doing it and stuff. So if you don't have a coach who realizes how important your goal is to you and is willing to back you 100%, then they're not the coach for you. But
I had that debate recently, and I spent a lot of time talking to Mike about this because I was having doubts about my coach, and you know, like when it all unraveled and I'd spoken to Mike and I thought, you know, it came down to the fact that the communication wasn't there, and I had to own a lot of that myself because, you know, I have that tendency like, oh, fuck, I'm just going to knuckle down and fucking do it. And if I don't hear from you, I'll just make my own assumptions. And I kind of buried myself a little bit by not communicating, and then kind of felt a bit bad and well, should I be communicating or fuck it, is it, you know, and trying to shuffle the blame a little bit. And I think that's a message, you know, it's something I learned, and look, I'm fucking old and I'm still learning, but it was something I learned. And I think if you have a coach, you owe it to yourself for your own performance, for your own benefit, to be open and honest with that coach, and if anything, over communicate.
exactly. I mean, the big one is, right, say your coach is like, blah, 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 eat this, and then you go home and you binge, and then you wake up the next day, you weigh yourself, and you send your weight to your coach, and he's like, you've stuck to your plan, but you're 4 kilos up. So you're really cheating yourself, because what's the coach's response going to be? Oh, I'm going to drop your calories or add cardio in now. So you basically created an extra deficit that you didn't have to create just by not communicating. Remember, us as coaches, we're not dad, we're not right or wrong or yes or no. You are paying this person to facilitate your program. So you are the boss. You need to be the ones telling them as much as you can. The more information, the better. Coaching is feedback orientated. If you're not getting any feedback, you can just Google a meal plan if you want one, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And a good learning point for me, definitely.
Yeah. So
I've just popped your Instagram up there, Darren, and we're just because I thought I'm not even going to edit this tonight because it's been so good. I'm just going to put the whole thing up as is. So warts and all. Here is Darren's Instagram page, Darren Dingle _ and talks about Flex Fitness Palmy. Actually, a few people at Flex Fitness Palmy now, eh?
Yeah, Daryl and Kelsey McLaughlin.
Yep.
I actually met them at the Wellington show this year down in the Wellington IFBB show, and he came up to me and said, "Hey man, like if you're interested after whatever," and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll let you know." And I went and talked to him, and just his passion for bodybuilding. Like in Palmerston North, we've got a lot of franchise gyms and no real specific place for bodybuilding. And you know, I've trained at City Fitness since 2013 here, and you know, every time you grunt or take your shoe off or you look at yourself in the mirror, someone's there to tell you off.
Yeah.
So it's been nice, like being around some people who not only love bodybuilding, but they love pushing members and trainers and everyone to be their best, and they facilitate that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And they just started following us on South Pacific Muscle, so that's really cool. So cool,
Yeah,
good.
Daryl,
Good. Yep.
Daryl watched your interview with Joseph Rukic the other night and said it was inspirational and awesome. So there you got him hooked.
Shot, Darren. If you're in Palmy, guys, go check out Flex Fitness in Palmy, and I will be down there later next week. So I'll
you come in and have a yarn, bro.
Yeah, next week, middle of next week, I'll be down there, so I might come for a train down there.
Sweet.
Right, I'm just gonna have a real quick scroll through your Insta, like this photo. This is a pro-am, eh?
No, this was Wellington this year. So yeah, I think I was like 89.9 again. I'd say this is one of my favorite looks, but like since my injury, I can't look at my physique the same, you know, like in terms of conditioning, yeah, spot on. Obviously things like my arms, my side shots, quads there, like there's a lot of things like I've been looking at working on, you know.
Yeah, I don't see the imbalance, but maybe that shot doesn't show it the way, you know, you obviously analyze every photo, every time you see yourself, every time you look in the mirror, but you know, I can't see.
It's kind of like I've learned ways of posing that I try to hide it, you know, because like the way I used to pose when I was fully fit, if I hit the pose the same way, it doesn't look the same way. So as you can tell, like in my front double there, my arms, I get told this a lot, I'm not closing off my biceps very well.
Yeah.
That's part of like my tendonitis and my elbows and stuff. That's as far as I can go, and I'm trying my absolute hardest there.
Yeah.
Also,
how old are you, Darren? How old are you?
27.
Because you sound like me, and I'm 50.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Long arms, limbs, like all my tendons and leg, everything. Like you say, my knees, my ankles, my shoulders, my wrists.
Do you take a lot of like, you know, chondroitin, curcumin, and things like that in your diet?
Yep, I've pretty much done everything. Like I'm not set on my laurels. You know, I've been going massage and physio and dry needling and all the health supplements you can think of. And yeah, well, I got a really good recommendation for a super supplement off a good man a few weeks ago, and that's been working. So,
like I have used growth hormone in very, very low doses, specifically because I tore both quad tendons off the patellas, and to train the way I train and try to have, you know, reasonably strong legs, and depending on the hack squat, and my depth sucks ass, but I can squat 5 to 7 plates aside on the hack squat. You know, I can leg press, fill up most leg presses to full range of motion. But doing that, my specialist said, if you get big legs again, you're going to rip them straight off. And I went, get fucked. I'm not listening to that. You can bury me now if I've got skinny legs. So, you know, what I had to do was find a way that I could train and not beat up my tendons the way I used to. So I have trialed that in the past. I'm not currently doing it, but I have run, and certainly when I had the injury, I make no bones about it. I ran, you know, 3 IU of growth every single fucking day for about 1.5 years. And, you know, I was 2 months ahead of my recovery schedule the whole way through. And I've got a really well knitted tendon on both knees. So I think there is a place for that. Obviously, you know, again, I'm not advocating going out and just doing that kind of thing. It's the kind of thing you have to do in line with a medical professional and seek that opinion. But, you know, there comes a time as you get older, particularly that, you know, your body doesn't function the way it used to when you were young. And, you know, I'm lucky, I guess, you know, probably from about 25, 26 years old, I had tendonitis so bad that I couldn't do a free weight squat in the morning to the ground, no way. And now I actually have no tendonitis in my knee. So whether it's the fact that I ripped the fucking tendons right off the knee, or it was the protocol that I used at the time, and look, I intend doing that kind of thing periodically if I have any issues with my knees. I'm not real keen to be in splints for 3 months again. So, you know, time and a place, man.
Yeah, well, anecdotally over the last, couple of weeks or a few months since I've been doing it, I've noticed the same thing. I've changed my training. I was wanting to do a bit of volume training, not volume training, sorry, the DC stuff. I just wanted to do top set, back off set, get as strong as I could. I'm still doing that, but I've got to pick exercises very carefully for what I'm going to do. So for like back, like I'm saying, I can't do rack pulls or deadlifts or bent over rows. So chest supported stuff, any of those hammer rows or anything like that. While it's not as fun, like I can still get a good squeeze and get that elbow right back. And same with like legs. I've been hack squatting or pendulum squat, takes a lot of the pain out of it.
What do you do for hammies, bro? Because you got a good set of fucking knotty hammies in that photo.
I used my thing with is that when I used to rack pull, deadlift, and everything, I've always stiff legged everything. I didn't know why. It's just the way I got taught, and I've always done it. Stiff leg deadlifts probably my favorite leg exercise. I've always probably overtrained them as well in terms of between quads and hammies. So if I did say I did 6 exercises for hammies, I might do 2 for quads. And mostly genetic. As you can see, I've got pretty good tie-ins around where my calves are and stuff. Nothing crazy.
Yep. Thank your parents for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get the vacuum going. Fuck, I'd love to be able to do a vacuum.
Yeah, well, apparently insulin gives you a bubble gut, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, actually, that's something that's an interesting one. Everyone's, probably less so now, but everyone in the late 90s when they started cracking down, and he was seeing guys on stage with 40-inch waists and things like that, everyone went, it's because of insulin. Then how the fuck does a diabetic bodybuilder get on stage that uses 50 times the insulin that a pro bodybuilder would ever use in a lifetime with a small waist? You would think that if it was purely a result of insulin, every diabetic would have a massive set of organs and protruding midsections.
I think it's just once I didn't used to really care about my waist either until I moved to classic. And when you move to classic, you start worrying about that sort of stuff. And I think I'm huge on gut health. I've got a program that I run religiously, and I do with all my clients that I think optimizes gut health. And I do my vacuums every single morning because I also have a genetically weak set of abs. So if I can make my waist look as small as possible, it's going to be to my advantage.
Nice. Essentially, it's the old school protocols, which were, as you talked about, where you're taking the insulin to take the carbs. So I'm going to take some insulin so I can ram a whole lot of carbs in. Means they're then ramming in a whole lot more food than they necessarily want or need, and that's going to distend your stomach and
especially like you say, if they're chucking in some sugar, and what they're drinking 100 grams of sugar while they're training, and then they have another load, so they have to have another 100 grams. You know what happens when you drink those sorts of drinks? Your gut just blows up like anything.
Nice, love the conditioning. Right, okay. We're going to have to get heading off fairly soon because I've got visitors that have just arrived. But we've got a couple of questions, and then we've got time for shout out. So I'm just going to find that post, and no, it's not us. Here we go. Make sure I've got all those questions answered. So Damien is Stimrat down in Dunedin, who asks questions every time. And thank you, Damien. Really appreciate that, man. What's your favorite type of training, low volume or high volume?
Definitely low volume. My whole life, I was like pretty much most of us when we first started. I'd do if I was doing chest, I'd do every single chest exercise there is, and I'd do 4 sets, and every set would be failure with drop sets and back off, everything like that. And I made a lot of progress doing that, but once, during that injury time, I had to reevaluate. Started watching a lot of JP and like you say, Ian and James and etc. And it made sense, if I can, that's the first training method where I look at and that makes so much sense, why don't everybody train like that? And then Connor obviously trains like that as well. So we put that into my training program. It just gives you small wins every time you're in the gym. If you go in there and you're trying to fail on every set, you have one bad set and you think, oh, what a shit workout. Whereas if you're going in there, top set, back off set, you're getting incrementally stronger on those 2 sets, you're winning. You know, it's kind
nice. I love that positive feedback on a regular basis. You know, that for me, that's really motivating. Look, Georgia, who was on the other week, and I know you know very well. She said, "What are your current goals for 2021? What shows are you looking at doing this year?"
My first goal is probably getting injury free. I have just started, well, as of after Christmas, started my off season because I've recovered enough that I can train a few things and do it progressively. Fingers crossed, I want to do the Pro Classic qualifier in Wellington in August. I think it would be, you know, I've been second at that show 4 years in a row. So if I don't go, it's a bit stupid.
Yeah.
It all depends on how my injuries go. You know, if I manage to put on a decent amount of muscle and bring the same kind of conditioning, I think I'll be a factor. But if I come in and my injuries aren't better, I'll shut it down after that. If I'm close and they're like, you know, fix a few things, I'll do nationals again and probably tournament and champions. But, you know, before this year, I kind of said to myself, you know, you've been doing this. I'm not going to quit bodybuilding if things don't go right this year, but I need to focus this amount of passion and attention to other aspects of my life, like my partner and my work and my clients, etc. You know?
Yeah, understandable. Hey, floor's yours, Darren, to put a shout out to your friends, loved ones, supporters, etc.
Cool. First of all, I just want to say thanks to Connor and Hinny for everything they did for me this year. It was Connor's first time prepping anyone for a show when he brought me in from Wellington. I think he did an awesome job. And his partner, Hin, was just amazing, like prep mum almost. To Georgia, she was like my little sister throughout prep. I put a thing up on Instagram like 8 weeks out, like, hey, anyone in Palmy still doing bodybuilding? I need a training partner. And, you know, she was the first person to put her hand up and she wouldn't miss a thing. She's so keen. Her enthusiasm's contagious. She's going to go far in whatever she's chooses to do. And I thank her for being there for me. To my partner, Jess, like I said, she's never been in the fitness industry before. So seeing all this stuff, you know, having to do all the social media stuff and posting this and standing on stage in your undies and all this stuff, and the mental stuff I go through, you know, like it's quite hard when you're dieting and you're hungry and stuff, and she puts up with it all. And yeah, I love her. Can't thank her enough for all that. To my grandparents, they gave me all the opportunities I could have when I was younger because I had no parents, and I don't think I would have, I don't know where I would have ended up if it wasn't for their love and direction. Like I said, to Daryl and Kelsey at Flex, the opportunities that have been presented to me and the faith they have in me as a person, as a coach, I can't thank them enough. Just having that belief in me just gives me more, more belief in myself. And thanks to you guys for what you guys have been doing with the podcast and stuff. Honestly, I look forward to every episode. It's cool to know that there's other people around in our small country that love the game as much as I do. And yeah, thanks for having me on today and having a chance to talk about my story.
Awesome, bro. I think when you say, you know, when people thank us for letting them come on, you know, we're always very humbled, obviously, but I kind of think we all suffer the same crazy and we're all in it together. So, you know, to all our people out there that have got that passion for our sport, really awesome having you following us. And look, we'll try and get on as many people as we possibly can going forward. If you've got suggestions, if you know people out there, you know, DM us, man. We're always down for it, you know, and we'll just keep on trucking and bringing on people and trying to share knowledge and our enthusiasm for the sport, because, you know, we're at the tail end of our careers now, so it's time for us to give a little something back, I guess. So for all our people out there, thank you very much for following us. Darren, thank you for coming along today and sharing one shit ton of knowledge, brother. Really appreciate it.
Very informative.
Thanks guys, and if you would love to come back on whenever you guys were, whatever you're doing, talking some smack or whatever.
Yeah, bro, we're due for a big smack talk soon.
Yeah, definitely.
You're there. Okay, people, we'll sign out and we'll catch up with you next.
Cheers guys. See you later.